Hey guys, I just wanted to make a quick video here and address an issue that keeps coming up regarding Catholics and Orthodox and Protestants. I don't like to flog a dead horse, but as the West implodes and is actually starting to rediscover its Christian roots, people realize the importance of returning to some type of Christian ethic, even if you remain an atheist or an agnostic, like Richard Dawkins. He wants to protect the Christian ritual without being committed to Christianity, but that's a different issue. The issue is that you cannot address the struggling young Western man trying to go back to his Christian roots if you can't address that without addressing the people that are also trying to pull you away from Catholicism. Before there was Protestantism, there was Catholicism in the West, namely Europe, and you can't deny it. It's historical fact, okay? Even if you're not Catholic, you have to recognize that. Even if you hate Catholics, you have to recognize that. And so the point is that if somebody comes to the conclusion and says, look, we got to save Western civilization or we're all screwed and we're going to all be replaced, then it comes to a point where you have to realize that if you become Catholic, but you have all the detractors constantly attacking you and misleading you and trying to bring you over to another total worldview, which Catholicism is a total worldview. It doesn't just address your morals and your virtues and your ethics and your home life and the way you act out in the public and the communities. It addresses the issue that I mentioned many times before, and that's, of course, your politic. And there's only so many politics that are compatible with the Christian ethic and the Christian way of life, and democracy is not one of them. Giving an equal voice, as I mentioned before, giving an equal voice to people that want to destroy you, people that want to outlaw Christianity, is not compatible with Christianity. Anybody can figure that out. And so when we look at Catholicism as a holistic total worldview, the Weltanschauung that Immanuel Kant talked about, that if you don't protect through a political action your ability to practice your Catholic way of life, your Christian virtues, then you're going to eventually be replaced by the plurality of democracy, non-Christian democracy, or say non-Catholic, but especially non-Catholic, but non-Christians in general. We know that because the majority of the entire world's 8.5 billion people on this planet are not Christian and they're not European. So you either represent your own interest or you'll go extinct. And before you go extinct, you'll be silenced. And we see that happening now. So does that mean you have to hate others, even the ones that want to extinguish you? No, it does not mean that. But it does mean that you have to love your own family and your own people and your own fellow believers more so than you love your enemy, right? And so that being said, you cannot address the Catholic issue without addressing the Orthodox issue. And the number one, including myself and my background, the number one stumbling block for many guys to deal with the Orthodox issue is in dealing with Dyer and the Dyer bots, okay? And I know I go too far saying ortho dogs. Of course, I don't mean that about everybody. I get along with a lot of Orthodox guys, and a lot of Orthodox guys don't like people like Dyer. The point is, this is not about a Dyer bash. I'm sure he's doing the best that he can with what he's doing. But the issue is that he's doing it in such a way that presupposes he has to totally torch Catholicism. Now, here's the problem. If you're a Western man trying to gain a sense of identity, gain a sense of purpose, find a place where you can go worship that has a true apostolic lineage or is connected to a political clarity on how to save the West, you can't be pulled into another total worldview advocacy, which is what Orthodoxy is, that also says that the West is the problem. The problem with the West is the West itself. So you have to understand the presentation of the Orthodox worldview is total worldview, but the modern Neo Orthodox make apologetics for the Soviet Union. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. especially attached to Russian Orthodox. So when you have the Russian Orthodox sycophants that follow the Alexander Dugin belief system, and if you know anything about Alexander Dugin and his Nazbol Soviet revivalism, he constantly talks about how the West and its liberal degeneracy makes it so bad that it should be worthy of being extinguished. And he wants to see blacks and Arabs take over where white Christianity or white Christians are. Now that's a simplification, and it's a gaslight, because liberalism cannot come from Christianity. Liberalism doesn't come from real Christianity, real Catholicism, even real Orthodoxy. And that's how we know that communism is not compatible with Orthodoxy. Even though I don't agree with Orthodoxy, it still, in its purest sense, has more to do and more similarities with Catholicism than any other religion, right? And because we have the same roots. But you can't say that because those that are in Russia that think, that suffered under communism, that they themselves that began to practice communism in Russia and called themselves Orthodox, say that Orthodox gave birth to communism. That's stupid. Or Bolshevism, whatever you want to say. It's all in the same wheelhouse, okay? It all presupposes a worldview that's atheistic in nature. How can that be compatible with Catholicism or any Christianity, okay? But the Duginist worldview, the Nazbol world, really the Soviet worldview, eventually came to a point where they say you can be both Orthodox and communist. Even Putin, this great savior of Western civilization, comes out and says, oh, there's a lot of similarities between communism and Christianity. Well, so what? There's similarities with Buddhism. It doesn't mean that you're going to say that those are compatible in direct overlap. But the point is that if the selling point of Orthodoxy is the entire West is degenerate, leave it and become Orthodox. And remember, becoming Orthodox means to embrace the entire culture. To these guys, I know I've been around it. I went to Orthodox catechism for a year, okay? And I attended for quite a bit before that, and I watched a lot of talks and read a lot of books 2 years before that. And that's after my family was already 11 years before that, already traditional Catholic, or I should say Catholic first and then traditional Catholic. So we're supposed to abandon the West to become Eastern Nationalist Orthodox? And if the belief is that the only real orthodoxy, because the Greek and the others have become liberal, just like the Novus Ordo Catholics, that they themselves, the only real orthodoxy left is in Russia? So now Putin's got to be our daddy, our sugar daddy, and he's going to save us? This is ridiculous. So just like how communism was not birthed by Russians and it wasn't birthed by Orthodoxy, so too liberalism was not birthed by the Christian West. It is a parasite, a degenerate, parasitical worldview that's infiltrated the West. And unfortunately, a lot of people have embraced it. Just like in Russia, when communism took over and killed millions of church members, millions of priests and nuns and the patriarchs and bishops and so forth, and they started putting in KGB and controlled clergy, you're starting to see that there's a similarity of a cooperation with these internationalist, modernist intelligence agencies, and they give up the fight and trying to fight for a traditional Christian worldview. So the point is that if the selling point of Neo Orthodox belief systems is that it is a Weltanschauung, it is a worldview, you can't just take part of it and leave the rest on the table. Okay? That means that if you want to become Orthodox, the real Orthodox, you have to become Russian Orthodox, support what Russia's doing no matter what they do, including when Russia denies it ever didn't do nothing wrong during the Cold War, during the Soviet Bolshevik Revolution, and its war crimes in World War II. I mean, we have guys running around, including the ortho bots following Dyer, saying things like, you're being lied by the CIA, lied to by the CIA. You're buying into the CIA lies. Soviet Union under Stalin protected Russia from the degenerate West. Well, they killed. They didn't. He didn't kill as many millions as they say. He only killed a few million. You're saying they killed tens of millions. No, no, no. People that lived there, including Alexander Solzhenitsyn. We come to find out after the collapse of the Cold War that it was far worse than what some of these people were claiming. And this is just what the Soviet Union did to its own people in Russia. And we already know what they did in Ukraine and what they exported to other countries. They're the responsible ones for spreading communist propaganda and politics throughout the entire world. And everything during the Cold War, everything that happened during the Cold War by them was meant to undermine the West. Now, you could disagree like I do with absolute unfettered capitalism, but you still can't change the fact that the presupposition of the Nazbol neo-Soviet Bolshevik revisionist position is that the true churches in Russia and Stalin was a strong man to protect the true Russian Orthodox Church. So much so that when they build more Stalin monuments, it's to honor him and how he protected the church. So he killed all these clergy and killed all these Orthodox, these faithful Orthodox and Eastern Catholics because he was protecting them. You understand how stupid that sounds? This is retarded. The point is that they go so far as to say that this is just a side story. So during World War II, when Germany entered into Russia and they entered into Eastern Europe, what had been shut down by Stalin was reopened by Germany. This is a fact. It's a historical fact, okay? And so by opening up and even building Orthodox churches in Eastern territories, Ukraine, Russia, and so forth, for four years, the Russian SS division thrived. The Russians thrived. They worshipped freely again. Communism was destroyed. Stalin was held back further east with all the loyalists for quite a period of time. But the West chose to support Stalin. And the Lend-Lease program continued, and the arming continued. And instead of having a chance to kill this dictator that they already knew was responsible for the Holodomor and tons of other mass executions and killings of Russians up to that point, they armed him. Okay? Just like they do now. When they see a bad guy, they get even worse guys to get the even worse guys over here. And then pretty soon they got to deal with both of these bad guys. And that's what they did. And so we're told that the War Memorial Cathedral that has hammers and sickles and has mosaics of the fallen martyrs of the Soviet Red Army in World War II. Amongst them is Stalin and Our Lady, for guys that aren't Catholic or Orthodox, that's Blessed Virgin Mary, has her arms out over Moscow because the story goes that Stalin claimed that Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to him and said, do a procession around all of Moscow with Our Lady of Kazan icon, and I will spare Moscow from being destroyed. He's the guy that's killing tens of millions of Russian Orthodox Christians. And she appeared to him? This is what Neo Orthodox believe. They're selling you a worldview, like I just said. So it is true that Germany was defeated. We know that. There were other issues involved. But the point is that after the war, Stalin did keep some of those churches open that actually Mustache Man opened up, but not for long. And eventually, the crackdown began again. By the time Khrushchev had come around again, it was back to what it was before World War II, practically. So why would Our Lady protect them just to be persecuted again later on? It's just such a fallacy. It's so ridiculous. The point is that the East has their own problems. We can work with some of these guys when they don't act so crazy. And just like the evangelicals that make their entire soul identity to be anti-Catholic, they should spend more time being good evangelicals if they want and be good Orthodox. But that's not what their angle is. Their angle is that we have to uproot and destroy everything that is not just Catholic. This is the Neo Orthodox guys, the Duginist type, the Nazbol type. We have to negate Western civilization. We have to eliminate it, extinguish it, and replace it. So essentially, these Neo Orthodox guys like Alexander Dugin are involved with the same crap that we already talk about all the time about demographic replacement. And they're the ones advocating that. So why would you, in an effort to realize what can we do to fight for the preservation of Western Christian virtues and values, you jump ship to a foreign land and a foreign belief and a foreign people that have nothing to do with you? And if you don't actually leave and go to that other side of the world, which would be kind of ridiculous because you're a foreigner and you're a traitor at that time. But if you stand as a Western man in the West, so you have these basically geopolitical and religious gadflies that argue all day long with people like Dyer, all day long. Just go down the video list of everything that he has posted up. Every single video is a gadfly commentary on what's wrong with society, what's wrong with this religion, what's wrong with that person. Here's an analysis of this movie. Here's what these guys really mean by this. You're going on and on and on. What's your answer, though? What is your answer? We know everything's bad. We know the Catholic Church is infiltrated, just like the Greek Orthodox Church is infiltrated, and how Russian Orthodox was during the Cold War and probably still is right now. So what's your answer? Oh, become a Eastern Nationalist Orthodox and leave the West? They have just as many, if not more, problems than we do. So why don't you do this? The young men that are trying to search for identity and they're considering orthodoxy. You can't separate your worldview. It is a holistic, total worldview. Either go to Russia and become Russian Orthodox as a traitor, or you stay in the West and you fight it out with your brothers. Okay? Because this degeneracy that you're seeing is not Western civilization. It is it's a foreign inserted parasite that is operated by parasitical people. And so if you have to fight those types of things over there, and you got to fight them here, why leave? That's the point. So instead of purity spiraling all day long for hours on end about theological treaties and back and forth about papal documents and who's right, how about you just, as a layperson, focus more on your political implementation and protection of your worldview, right? The Catholic, the Christian worldview. And right now, once you start looking around, like I put in a article that I put together in refutation of this anti-Catholic stream that was done recently, in the end, none of that matters if you yourself don't offer that political power. You can give a pep talk. You could do an Anthony Robbins style motivational speaking. You could even tell somebody to become Christian in general and then just stay at home because nobody in the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church actually fits that standard. They don't fit the standard. They're not real Catholic. They're not real Orthodox. Okay, so you just stay at home. But the problem is that doesn't give you the ability to partake in some type of a political activism to fight back against the degeneracy in the West. And right now, there is no such thing as political representation. There's no PAC, there's no nonprofit organization, there's no unified political power at all in the West for the Catholic, the others that want to be conservative Protestants and fight back against this, let alone Orthodox guys. But here's the point. They don't have any power either. They have nothing to offer. So become Orthodox means you're going to be on a rudderless boat with nobody to help you either, just a bunch of guys online to talk about things with. So we have to recognize that our problems are not unique, but they are our problems. And they didn't just happen recently. These things go back centuries, especially over the past century. You guys know I talk about it because I'm a World War II historian as well. World War I, somewhat historian. What I don't know, my brother knows, and many of the other guys in our groups know. And that is that what happened in World War II is hung upon the necks of all of us, including Russia, including the Orthodox. And so we have to own the mistakes and the problems of others and let that be the sacrificial altar in which we take all of Western civilization, especially Catholicism, and sacrifice it to the past, abandon it, and become Orthodox? No, thank you. Wrong, wrong, wrong. So keep that in mind. Think politically. Think How is it possible to implement these these Christian principles without going to jail? Because that's happening even in our homelands in Europe. You can't even read from the Bible certain passages without getting in trouble. It's crazy. So anyway, wanted to just address this, and I already addressed it. Go in my Twitter timeline under highlights, and I have an article that I posted refuting the anti-Catholic position that the ortho guys end up putting out. So until next time.